We're back with another very influential tech company who will join our stage. We have Lindsey Held Bolton, who is the head of public relations for OpenAI. Please join me in welcoming her. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Good
being
evening,
here.
everyone.
Thank you for filling in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my boss unfortunately could not be here tonight, Hannah Wong, our Chief Communications Officer. So she's sad to miss this, but I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, well, and I think it's really important because what you do, you work for one of the most influential companies of our time right now. And with the rollout of ChatGPT, you've really changed the way that we work. You've changed the way that we communicate. And so I'm excited to dive into that with you. You all just celebrated 2 years of the ChatGPT launch.
We did. It's amazing. 2 years ago, ChatGPT launched. How many of you actually use ChatGPT? I'm curious. Okay.
Pretty good number.
I'm glad to see that. And it went from being, kind of a very basic experience into now we've got models that are multimodal. They can talk to you. They can reason. That's the latest. They can solve really hard problems for people. It has been a wild ride over the last 2 years. I'm sure you all have read the headlines, right? Which are out there every day. And some of those are very much OpenAI related. Some of those are just AI related because there's so much interest in what we do. And what we also have to navigate a lot is that for a lot of people, I think ChatGPT is AI. And so we're in a privileged position to be kind of the company of the moment, but a lot of responsibility comes with that, and we take it very seriously.
Yeah, so talk to us about that, how you navigate all of the headlines that are constantly coming out and the media scrutiny that you rightly receive, right? Like it's being the company of the moment has its pros and cons. You have a fairly small team, considering. How do you navigate the offense versus the defense? And then also, how do you navigate when to engage with the media, when to push back on certain headlines? And then my next question is, how do you manage all that internally? So let's start with the headline piece, how you push back.
So I will say we do have a very small team. We've kept it pretty small and tried to really grow thoughtfully and intentionally over the years. But I think in terms of navigating the challenges, and don't roll your eyes, this may sound cheesy, but the team is absolutely the most important. We've had a central comms team since day one that works incredibly well together, is super, super closely knit together, and I think we've really gone out, and this is a tribute to Hannah, Steve Dowling, who came over from Apple and started the team. It's a tribute to Sam, really setting the culture for the company and deciding what our philosophy is and how we want to operate. The best part about working for a startup, and a reminder, we are a startup, we are a tiny little company at the end of the day, is that you get to go out and build the team that you want. This is absolutely the best part of my job. And so we are very selective in picking the most talented, low ego, just scrappy, amazing people who can come in and do the work. And the reality is we hit bumps all day, every day, but when you've got just a stellar team, it just smooths out the bumps. The team now, when I came in, so when ChatGPT launched, there were 2 people worldwide. I came in a year and a half ago, and there were 4 of us. And I think my team, which really does a lot of the external, the media relations mainly, we're now up to about 15 worldwide. So there is so much work, there is so much interest. We get calls about the craziest things I would never think would be a story, like what watch did Sam wear today? And you're like, how is this interesting? But when you have a small team like that and so much interest, there's just no room for drama or any of the things you may encounter potentially in a bigger organization. And a lot of us have worked in bigger organizations. We're just too busy. There's just too much work that has to be done.
There's enough drama in the headlines. So how do you navigate that? And then also, how do you manage it internally? You've mentioned Sam now twice.
Yeah.
How does he feel about communications? How does he feel about PR?
So in terms of external, I think really what my focus and the team's focus is education. We really want to go out there and demystify AI. I think sometimes there's mistrust if you don't understand how the technology works. So we really are focused on education and going out and doing a lot behind the scenes with reporters, with third parties, constituencies we care about, to make sure they understand. We engage a lot, even with a small team. We really try to be thoughtful have very honest discussions, and do a lot kind of behind the scenes on the education front. And be able to talk about the good. We have to address the challenges and the criticisms, and that's fair, but we also are trying to balance more to the proactive and talking about the good use cases. And in talking about the culture, Sam exemplifies that. He really deeply values communications. If you've ever seen him, he's actually a great natural communicator, which makes my life easy, which is tremendous. But yeah, so I think it is, just to answer your question on the proactive and the reactive, we get a lot of incoming. But as my team has gotten a bit bigger, we've been able to do more in terms of what are the narratives we really do want to land. That's a balance we fight for. It's hard right now, but things like how AI is being used in higher education, or the importance of AI infrastructure and what you need in order to go build and deliver these really powerful systems, are some of the stories we're trying to tell more.
So the challenge of breaking through, the challenge of explaining this technology and making sure people know what it is, what it isn't, establishing trust. Absolutely. Another challenge that you all have, and it's not unique to you, it's across the tech sector more or less, is leaks, a lot of high-profile turnover. How do you handle that? I imagine you have some sort of strategy at this point.
Leaks are par for the course. I'm sure everyone in this room can relate to that, right? They're going to happen, and when you're a fast-growing company, they're especially going to happen. I think the challenge for us is just making sure they don't throw you off your game, right? And you plan for, if you're doing things internally, there's a strong chance it's going to leak. And so what we try to do, I think, and this goes to trying how we want to build trust as well, is just try to be very transparent. And if we are going to share things internally, which we want to do, we want to maintain an open culture, given how small we are and how fast we're moving. But if we're going to share things internally, we often try to get ahead of leaks and share it externally as well, and maybe give more context than you would normally get if it was just through a leak. It's not a perfect science. It's an ongoing kind of struggle, but we do the best we can.
Another thing that I think is unique about your team specifically is that community sits within your team, or Hannah's team,
yeah.
The communications team at large.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because you also roll out products early for the specific communities that the products might help or impact or see the most use. Sora is a great example. You rolled that out with artists first.
Correct.
So talk to us about the community piece and how that plays into this fragmented media landscape. How do you find these communities? How do you engage with them?
So we, much like you all, we look at all of kind of our different channels, and traditional media is super important. That continues to be one, but we're thinking a lot too about how do we go direct to audiences. We have kind of an interesting challenge in that everyone is our audience at the end of the day. But what we do is some of my colleagues really focus on going out and building community with some of these groups who are also going to be early adopters of our technology. So we have a community group, for example, Sora is one. Earlier this year, we shared a research preview of this. This is what we call iterative deployment. We want to go out very early in the process and show you all really what the research is, so that we can get feedback, we can improve the experience and make it better as we go. So in the case of Sora, we showed it earlier this year, and then now we've been working with the creative community behind the scenes to give them early access and figure out, how can this be more helpful to your creative process? What are its weaknesses? Where do we need to go back in and make it stronger? We do that with all of our products. We do it across different groups who may be ideal early adopters. We do it with safety groups, and then we wait until it's really ready to share more broadly. So
communicators are also a big audience for ChatGPT specifically, but I would imagine more tools that you'll roll out over time. How is your team using AI in your workflow?
We are always learning, right? The technology changes by the day. We're driven by research, and so there's always something new.
You just had a hackathon, right?
We just had a hackathon. So I would say, think about AI, it's like an assistant. It's just a tool. One thing I do, which is muscle memory, is I keep it up on my laptop during the day, and if I'm struggling with something, I may go in there and use it as kind of someone to bounce ideas off of. But a couple key things I use it for that may be helpful for you all from a communication standpoint. I use it for translation every day. Did an article come out in Korea? I can get a readout on it. Or, do we have a blog post going out in Japan? We can do a translation. Now, I always go in and double check and make sure everything is right, but that'll give me some quick counsel in that way. I use it for coverage reports. I can take a lot of media coverage, put it in there, ask it, like, what are the 3 top trends that you saw carry through in the coverage, and it'll share that back with me. Or you can do something like take an op-ed and put it in and say, poke holes through this op-ed, let me know what criticisms certain stakeholders might have, and let me know how I can strengthen the language. But more often than not, it's like helping with the mundane stuff that you'd rather have your assistant do so you can focus on the strategic stuff that's super important. But it's an assistant, it's a tool, it's something that's just going to be helpful. We had a hackathon this week, because like I said, it's always changing and you're always trying to figure out, how can I use this? One thing we do have, if you're a Plus user, if you subscribe, you can pull up, and on the left of the screen, it will say Explore GPTs. So we sat down with some of our folks internally and built our own GPTs. You guys can do the same. I'm happy to show you how. And basically, you give it custom instructions per, something that you might be struggling with where you really want it, set it up in a way that's going to help you. So one of the best use cases that my team came up with is you can pick an executive in your office and try to figure out how can I do quotes from this executive, more quickly and do it in their voice. So you take someone, pull maybe speeches they've given or emails they've sent or whatever information you think is a flavor of that individual, put it into the system, create your own chat GPT or own GPT, which will then be able to give you quotes based off of kind of what they know about that individual and how they speak. So, but again, go in there and play with it. Like, there's so many cool things you can do that you just don't think about until you start to think about, what am I struggling with and how can AI just be a helpful side assistant?
Looking ahead to 2025, we've heard agents are what's on the horizon.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And have you thought about rebranding that?
Agents is like the topic du jour. I think the name is not great. I think we need a better name. But that's really, how do you take AI systems and send them off to do very complex tasks for you that may involve thinking? Like, go plan a trip for me, or there's all sorts of things that these systems eventually are going to be able to do. And I know we're thinking about that. Google, everyone else is really thinking about agents. And yes, we do need a new name for that. So.
We always like to end on one fun thing. You mentioned that you all are building your own GPTs, and I know you don't want to humanize the chatbots, but if you had to name your chatbot, what would you name it?
I think I need about 3 more cocktails before I can come up with something good on that. My default is Chatty. I talk to Chatty, like Chatty's so that would be my go-to.
Yeah. I like it. Well, thank you so much, Lindsey.
Thank you. Thank you.